I adjusted the sleeves of my black silk blouse, smoothed the hem of my pants, and glanced up at the glowing sign, the Hollow Elm. My heartbeat thudded louder than the bustle of Friday night Nashville behind me. This place, warm lights, handcrafted oak doors, a soft scent of rosemary and smoke drifting from the kitchen was mine. I'd built it from the bones of a failed music bar. I knew every detail, down to the hidden drawer where the pastry chef kept her grandmother's nutmeg grater. But tonight, I would walk in not as the owner or the executive chef. I'd walk in as Avery Cole, the black sheep of the Cole family, attending my younger sister Brielle's engagement dinner. They didn't know. Not that I was in town, not that I was successful. And certainly not that they'd booked their celebration at my restaurant. The irony would have been funny if it didn't feel so heavy. 5 years ago, I left a business grad program at Duke, 2/4 short of a degree, and walked straight into the doors of a culinary school in Austin. The same week, my father cut me off. No calls. No money. No, we'll talk later. Just silence. My mother's last words. If you walk out that door to cook for strangers, don't expect to come back. And yeah, there they were, back, at my door. They must have picked the Hollow Elm because it was on every Best of Nashville list this year. My name isn't on the site. I've never done interviews, only food magazines, and always under the brand. My investors preferred discretion, and so did I. I'd debated showing up at all. When the engraved invitation came courier delivered, of course I stared at it for an hour before texting Celia, my GM, to approve the reservation. Table for 8, private corner booth. Brielle Cole and Chase Whitman. That was how my own sister signed her name now first, polished and partnered. I took one last breath of the night air, pushed open the door, and stepped inside. Soft jazz played from a corner speaker. A hostess looked up, smiled warmly. "Good evening. Table 4?" Before she finished, I caught sight of them. They'd taken the booth near the wine cellar just as I'd expected. My mother, Ellen, still flawless in her signature Chanel. My father, Jonathan, flipping the wine list like it was a contract. Daniel, my older brother, already half distracted by a call. Brielle, radiant in something cream-colored and tight, and next to her, Chase Whitman, all jawline and smug confidence. My stomach tightened. I adjusted my necklace. Me grandmother's locket and nodded to the hostess. "Reservation for Cole," I said. She smiled again, not knowing the truth. Sometimes, the hardest reservations to make are with your past. As I followed the hostess toward the table, each footstep echoed with memory. They used to call us the Cole Legacy back in Franklin, Tennessee. My parents weren't just wealthy, they were established. My dad ran one of the most respected investment firms in the South. My mom had chaired the hospital board, the library board, and 3 foundation galas before I even finished high school. We were the kind of family who gave holiday bonuses to the help, posed for town newsletters, and sent all 3 kids to private schools with Latin mottos and fencing electives. Daniel was the golden boy varsity tennis, Harvard MBA, now managing capital for a multi-billion-dollar firm. Brielle? She was the polished debutante who graduated from Vanderbilt Law and clerked for a federal judge before turning 25. Then there was me, the middle child, the quiet one. The creative spirit, my mother said with a tight smile that never reached her eyes. But the truth was simpler. I found home in places they didn't look. While Brielle practiced mock trial and Daniel rehearsed college interviews, I spent afternoons in the kitchen with my grandmother. Nana Ruth wasn't part of the country club set. She wore aprons faded from real use, not ironic Etsy embroidery, and she cooked like Storieslow, textured, rich with intention. She taught me the way onions speak when they're caramelizing properly. She let me mess up biscuit dough 100 times. She showed me how flavor was a language and I spoke it fluently. It was Nana who first said, "You don't need their permission to be whole, Avery. You just need heat, salt, and courage." But Nana passed away a year ago. And I didn't even know the funeral happened until I saw it on Daniel's wife's Instagram rows of white chairs, my mother in black lace, a plate of catered food that looked like punishment. By then, I'd already opened the Hollow Elm. I hadn't told them I was dropping out of the MBA program. Just left. The call from Dad came 2 days later. Short, cold, "You've embarrassed the family. You'll get no support. Good luck flipping eggs." They didn't know that by then I had already enrolled at the Nashville Culinary Institute, using the money I'd earned from a pop-up dinner series I hosted illegally out of my apartment. They didn't know about the 6 months I slept on a friend's futon to make tuition, or the double shifts I pulled at a roadside diner to afford my knives. And they definitely didn't know about the night I stood in a walk-in fridge after a 14-hour shift, hands numb, telling myself, "One day, I'll feed people who once told me I'd starve." The thing is, I didn't leave for revenge. I left to breathe. And tonight, I wasn't here to rub anything in. I wasn't even sure why I came. Maybe part of me still needed to see them with my own eyes. To see if anything had changed. To see if I could sit across from them and not fold like before. The hostess slowed. "Right this way, Miss Cole." As I approached, my mother looked up and scanned me the way she used to inspect table linens before a fundraiser, polite, measured, a little judgmental. "Darling," she said, rising to kiss the air beside my cheek. "You made it. We were beginning to wonder." "I'm exactly on time," I replied. My father gave me a stiff nod. "You look healthy," which in Cole family code meant, "You've gained weight." I took the last empty seat at the table, smiling tightly. I looked around. No one here knew what I'd built, but I did. And for now, that would have to be enough. "I ordered the champagne already," my mother said as she delicately adjusted the napkin on her lap. "I hope that's all right." "Of course," I replied. I scanned the table. The Hollow Elm's signature glassware gleamed under soft pendant lights I'd chosen myself. Candles flickered gently in frosted holders I'd imported from a glassmaker in Vermont. Every detail was intentional. Every inch had once lived in my head before coming to life here. Chase Whitman's fiancé was exactly as I remembered from Brielle's law school graduation. Tan, manicured, and utterly self-impressed. His handshake had once been firm to the point of aggression, like he wanted you to know he had grip strength and a Wharton degree. "This place is nice," he said, glancing around as if mentally tallying price tags. "Kinda hard to get into. Had to call in a favor." I smiled faintly. "Did you?" He gave a smug chuckle. "A buddy of mine knows someone high up, pulled a few strings." Brielle leaned in. "Honestly, Avery, it's a miracle we got a table. I didn't even think you'd heard of this place. It's a little elite for your taste, isn't it?" I blinked, trying to keep my expression still. "Brielle," Daniel warned under his breath. She waved him off. "What?" "It's a fair question. Avery's always been more grounded." Grounded. The way she said it was like describing someone who voluntarily wore knockoff handbags and used coupons for shampoo. "So," my father began, as the server poured champagne, "what have you been up to these past few years, Avery?" "We haven't heard much." That was intentional. "Working," I said simply. "In food." Chase perked up. "Oh? Like catering?" "Line cook," Brielle guessed. "Or wait, maybe she's a barista now? You used to like coffee, didn't you?" I smiled tightly. "I've done a bit of everything." "Well, my mother said, lifting her glass. We're glad you're supporting yourself. That's what matters. The server arrived with the amuse-bouche compressed watermelon with chili salt and a cilantro oil drizzle. One bite, meant to wake up the palate. Chase picked his up and squinted. What is this? Fruit? It's a palate cleanser, I explained. Brielle sniffed hers suspiciously. I don't do cilantro. It tastes like soap. It's oil, not raw. Subtle, I said. She pushed it aside. Still gross. I watched her waste it, the same dish my staff had spent hours perfecting, one of our best seasonal starters, and she dismissed it like an expired yogurt. Across the table, my father popped his in whole, chewed and nodded absently. Interesting. Chase chewed exaggeratedly. Sweet, spicy, kinda weird. It's not meant to be sweet, I muttered, more to myself than anyone. As the server retreated, Brielle leaned forward again, tilting her head. So seriously, what do you do? Hostessing somewhere cute? Or maybe food trucks? I took a breath. I manage a restaurant, I said. She smirked. Applebee's? Daniel flinched. Don't be cruel, Allison Daniel's wife muttered. But even she didn't sound convinced I was worth defending. Nothing wrong with working your way up, my mother offered. Maybe one day you'll open something of your own. Of course, Nashville's expensive. Chase reached for the wine list. Decent selection. Not exceptional, but passable. Some of these pairings are questionable. He looked at me as if seeking agreement, and that's when it hit me. They were sitting in my restaurant, sipping my wine list, critiquing my food, and they had no idea. It burned hot and quiet beneath my skin, anger that curled like smoke, that tasted like copper on my tongue. I smiled at Chase. Let me know if you find something better. Oh, I will, he said confidently. He had no idea who he was talking to. By the time the first course arrived, I couldn't taste a thing. I had designed this dish, myself, a smoked tomato bisque with basil creme fraiche, and a Parmesan crisp that curled into itself like a sculpture. Our kitchen made the stock from scratch every morning. We roasted the tomatoes over applewood. The balance of acid and cream was delicate, intentional, honest. And yet, as the plates were placed before us, all I felt was dread. Brielle sniffed it. Soup again? Is this like a trend? It's a first course, I said, keeping my tone light. Meant to ease in. My father took one spoonful and nodded. Needs salt. Chase tilted his bowl, slurping audibly. Too smoky. Kinda overpowering, if you ask me. He looked around the table. No one asked. Daniel and Allison were the only ones who seemed to actually eat it. I watched as they finished quietly, offering no commentary, no complaints, just neutrality. It felt like a mercy. I stared at my own bowl. I should have said something by now. Told them, lifted the veil, watched the shock bloom across their faces. The part of me that wanted justice screamed for it. But I couldn't move. Somehow, after 5 years, they still had the power to make me feel small. I was 29. I owned a top-rated restaurant. I had a staff of 36. 2 major investors. A book deal. And yet here I sat, heart pounding like I was 17 again, about to explain why I wasn't applying to Yale. I'd built an empire. But in front of them, I still felt like a failure. My eyes drifted across the dining room. In the far corner, Marcus, the floor manager, caught my gaze. We locked eyes for half a second. His expression was carefully neutral, but I saw it. The question behind his eyes. Are you okay? I gave a small nod. He turned back to his duties. Jessica passed our table, clearing bowls. When she picked up Brielle's barely touched dish, her eyes flicked to mine, then away. Her disappointment wasn't in the food. It was in the way they treated me. She knew everything. She'd been with me since day one, and I couldn't even meet her eyes. Second course, halibut over citrus fennel risotto. I had flown in the fish just that morning. Chase poked at it. This. Undercooked? It's perfect, I said, a little sharper than intended. He blinked, surprised. I mean, it's fine. My mother dabbed her lips. So, Avery, anyone special in your life? You're not getting any younger, you know. I set down my fork. Number, I'm focused on my career. A career in food, Brielle muttered. Still can't believe that stuck. You'd be amazed what sticks when you commit, I said. My father leaned in. What's your plan long term? Food service isn't exactly sustainable. Do you have retirement savings? A 401k? I stared at him. I wanted to laugh, or scream, or tell him he was sitting in the retirement plan he never believed in. Instead, I folded my napkin across my lap and took another bite of risotto I couldn't taste. I wasn't here to prove anything. I reminded myself of that. I wasn't here for validation or apology. I had nothing to prove, and yet I felt hollow, not because I needed their approval, but because I'd spent years building a life that didn't require it, and still, a piece of me wished they saw me for who I was. Not a disappointment, not a burden, just Avery. The fourth course was about to arrive via grilled duck breast glazed with cherry gastrique, nestled beside charred broccolini and creamy farro. A seasonal special, one of my favorites. Chef Morgan had prepped it herself tonight, knowing I'd be at the table. As the plates were placed in front of us, Chase leaned in again, glancing at the dish with mild suspicion. Little pink in the middle, he muttered. Should have cooked it through. It's duck, I replied. It's supposed to be medium rare, keeps the texture tender. I like my meat cooked properly, he said, jabbing it with his fork. I'll have them fix it. Before I could stop him, he raised his hand to flag a server. Jessica appeared almost instantly. She'd clearly been watching. This is undercooked, Chase declared, without looking at her. Tell the chef to do it right this time. Jessica hesitated, then looked at me. I gave a soft nod. Of course, sir, she said, taking the plate away with practiced diplomacy. I closed my eyes for a moment. The duck was perfect tender, rendered skin, a slight sear that took months of testing to master, and just like that, it was disrespected and dismissed. My mother cleared her throat, refolding her napkin. So, Avery, have you thought about coming home? Maybe rejoining us in Franklin? I blinked. For what? Well, she said delicately, perhaps we could help you transition into something more stable. I stared at her. She glanced at my father, who added, if things are difficult financially, we could help. No shame in asking for support. Then Brielle chimed in, voice dripping with faux concern. Exactly. I mean, a place like this, it's expensive. Even dinner here must be, what? A few hundred a person? Chase laughed. Probably more. Hope you're not going into credit card debt for the Instagram moment. Their words hit like dull knives. Not sharp, but deep. I looked at the plates, at the wine, at the candles flickering gently between us, and then, the final blow. Actually, Chase said, frowning at the leather-bound checkbook Marcus had just delivered, this bill looks off. They only charged us for the wine, not the food. My father reached for it. Let me see that. There's definitely a mistake, Chase insisted. Where's the food? Someone needs to fix this. Marcus stepped up beside the table, composed as ever. Is there an issue, sir? He asked calmly. Chase pointed. Yes. The bill. It's missing half the charges. Marcus glanced at me, waiting. I took a deep breath. This was it. No error. I said quietly. The food's been taken care of. Chase squinted. By who? I straightened in my seat. By me. A beat of silence. Brielle's voice cracked. What? I turned toward Marcus. Please close out the wine under Mr. Whitman's card. Of course, Miss Cole, he said, now with a smile. Would you like me to let Chef Morgan know you'll stop by the kitchen before you meet the investors? My mother's eyes widened. My father's jaw tensed. I turned back to the table. Welcome to the Hollow Elm, I said softly. My restaurant. The silence was absolute. No one moved. No one breathed. I could feel their confusion turning into recognition. The names on the menus, the carefully plated courses, the way staff deferred to me, it all snapped into place. I lifted my glass. I hope dinner has been enlightening. My father was the first to speak. Your restaurant? He repeated, slowly, as if testing the words. You own this place? Yes, I said simply. I'm the executive chef and sole proprietor. You built this? Brielle asked, her voice shrinking by the syllable. Since when? I looked around the table at the people who had spent the last 2 hours critiquing every detail of the space I had poured 5 years of my life into and felt something unfamiliar, peace. Since 3 years ago, I replied. We opened quietly at first. Built up word of mouth. Then a few press features came in. Bon appetit. Food and wine. The Times. Last quarter, we hit capacity reservations for the next 4 months. Chase leaned back, blinking. Wait, this is your place? This is like a real restaurant. I turned toward him. What did you think it was? He coughed. Wow. I mean, that's impressive. My mother finally found her voice. Darling, why didn't you tell us? You mean after you cut me off? After you said cooking was a hobby for people who couldn't think academically? I tilted my head. I suppose I didn't think you'd be interested. That's not fair, she said quickly, voice rising. We were concerned about your future, about stability. If we'd known you had this kind of success, I held up a hand. Exactly. You only value my choice now that it fits your definition of achievement. My father frowned. I always said you had strong instincts. Maybe you got that from me. I stared at him. You told me I'd end up flipping burgers in a strip mall. He shifted uncomfortably. That was hyperbole. No, Dad. That was contempt. Allison let out a breath beside Daniel, who hadn't said a word since the reveal. He just kept looking around the space, taking it in again like he was finally seeing it. Chase recovered enough to shift tactics. You know, he said, leaning in with a smile. I actually work with a few hospitality investors. If you're looking to expand, maybe open a second location. I'm not, I said. Just saying, he pushed. There's opportunity there, especially with your press. I have my own advisors, I said calmly. Trusted ones. And we're growing on our own timeline. He nodded slowly. Sure. Just offering. The wine list he'd insulted. The dish he'd sent back. The portions he'd ridiculed. All prepared under my roof. With my name signed in invisible ink across every detail. Brielle, to her credit, didn't speak. She just stared at her untouched duck breast like it had personally betrayed her. Then she finally muttered, You let us sit here and act like you were struggling. I did, I replied. Why? I leaned forward. Because I wanted to see how you'd treat me when you thought I had nothing. The silence that followed was thick. embarrassment, shame. A few lingering strands of pride, trying to salvage themselves. Daniel finally cleared his throat. "For what it's worth," he said quietly. "This place. It's remarkable, Avery." "Thank you," I replied, genuinely. Marcus returned with the closed bill. "Mr. Whitman, the beverage tab is complete. And Chef Morgan wanted to confirm your availability for tomorrow's supplier tasting, Miss Cole. Tell her I'll be there by 10, I said. Marcus gave a small nod to me and an unreadable glance to the rest of the table. Then he disappeared like a magician, leaving behind only tension and the soft echo of consequences. "I can't believe this," my mother murmured. "I mean, we're proud of you." I gave a soft smile. "You're proud because I'm successful. That's not the same as being proud of me." "I didn't mean it like that," she said, her voice thinner now. "We were wrong, but can't we move forward from this?" "I'd like to," I said. "But it has to be on different terms. I don't need approval, I don't need help, and I certainly don't need to explain myself anymore." My father raised his glass halfway. "To Avery, the one we didn't see coming." I clinked my glass gently. "To those who build quietly and speak only when it matters." 2 weeks had passed since the dinner at the Hollow Elm, and still, pieces of it floated through my mind like steam rising off a slow simmering sauce. Some memories lingered longer than others. The stunned look on Brielle's face, the silence when I revealed the truth, the tight knot in my chest that finally unraveled, and then came the quiet shifts. Daniel sent an email the following Monday. "Avery, I showed my daughter pictures of your restaurant. She wants to take cooking classes now, says you made it look like art, just thought you should know." It was simple, no grand apology. But it landed heavier than anything he'd said at the table. Later that week, Brielle texted me. "Any chance you're free for coffee? I need a reality check on this wedding." You've always had better instincts than me, just never wanted to admit it. We met at a small cafe near 12th Avenue. For the first time in years, she didn't lead with a passive-aggressive comment. Instead, she asked for my opinion on her dress, on the caterer's overwrought menu, even on whether she was marrying Chase for love or for expectations. I gave honest answers. She listened. It wasn't a breakthrough, but it was something. A beginning, maybe. Then, last Sunday, my mother called. Not a voicemail, not a cold text, a real call. "I found a little Vietnamese sandwich shop downtown," she said. "They serve something called banh mi. You ever had one?" I smiled. "I have. Would you maybe go with me next weekend?" "I hear the pork belly is something else." We met the following Saturday. No pearls, no pretenses. She wore jeans. Real jeans. She ordered the pork belly, ate the whole thing, called it divine. And when she reached for the check, I let her pay. It wasn't an apology. It didn't need to be. The healing didn't come in one sweeping moment. It arrived in fragments, in slow acknowledgements, in learning to listen without defending, and in finally understanding that I didn't need them to be different for me to be whole. That night, I sat alone at table 9, my usual spot after closing time. The staff had gone home. The lights were low. A glass of Merlot sat beside my open notebook. I'd been struggling for weeks to write the introduction to my upcoming cookbook. I wanted it to be more than just recipes. I wanted it to be honest. And finally, the words came. "Food is how I learned to speak when I felt invisible. It's how I built something lasting, after being told I had nothing to offer." The dishes in this book are not just meals, they're markers of a path paved without permission, but full of purpose. If you've ever been dismissed, overlooked, or underestimated, then this book is for you. Because you're more than enough, and the best table you'll ever sit at is the one you build for yourself. I set my pen down and closed the notebook. The restaurant was quiet, but I felt full of memory, of growth, of peace. For the first time in years, I didn't crave their approval. Because I finally understood. I hadn't created the hollow elm to prove anything to my family. I had created it because it was the only place I ever truly felt seen. And now, I could see myself clearly, completely, and know that was always more than enough. Have you ever been told that your dreams were too small, too soft, too impractical to matter? Have you ever sat across from people who were supposed to believe in you and felt completely unseen? If Avery's story reminded you of your own silent fight, your journey to claim space in a world that kept trying to shrink you, then this channel is for you. We share true stories of quiet strength, second chances, and building success on your own terms. Drop a comment if you've ever had to walk your path without applause. AT0. And hit subscribe because you deserve to hear stories that honor the courage it takes just to keep going. Thank you for watching. And remember, you don't need anyone's permission to become who you were meant to be. You just need to start.